Hey guys, here's a 1990s Lakewood twin window fan, model T-99. This is the second ever window fan to enter my collection. As you can probably tell from my videos that I don't really collect window fans. And really the main reason is because I just don't really have a good use for them. All of the windows in my house are one of those crank windows that open on a vertical axis, so there's no way to fit a window fan in it. So I haven't been collecting that many. Really, the Duracraft is the only one that I have. But recently I came across this fan and I just couldn't pass it up. It's a Lakewood fan, and here in Canada you almost never come across Lakewood products. So I got this one, and I actually got two other window fans along with this one, which are new in the box. So I'll show you guys those in a later video, but I wanted to make this video because not only is it kind of an interesting fan, but I just haven't made a before restoration video in quite some time. I've been just super busy, so I almost went, I think, a month and a half without uploading a video, which is really crazy to me, but I'm back and I'm hoping to make more videos in the near future, so keep an eye out for them. I've been collecting a lot of fans though, so there's a huge backlog of fans and other cool things that I want to make videos of, so keep an eye out for those. But anyways, this fan is pretty interesting because I would argue that this is one of the cheapest window fans I've ever come across, which is kind of surprising for a Lakewood product because they made great box fans, but I guess when it came to their table fans and their window fans, they just kind of fell behind. I'll show you there's some elements on this fan that you can obviously tell that it was intended to be cheap. So let's go around and take a look at it. So keep in mind that I haven't cleaned the fan yet. It is in its as found condition, but it's already pretty darn clean. That'll save me some work. So here's the controls, just the rotary switch, which is accessible from both sides because this is a manually reversible fan. You can flip the whole fan around for exhaust and intake. The switch is kind of stiff and it's got a squeak to it, so I'll look into that. And it's got this little flimsy plastic strap handle, which I'm not a big fan of. It kind of screams cheapness, and I don't know, I don't think I've ever seen that on a window fan. I think they all tend to have a molded, integrated handle in the back, but Lakewood, I guess they didn't want to do that. They had to go with that route, I guess. Let's take a look at the fans and the motors. So these blades look suspiciously similar to the 9-inch Lasco oscillating fan blades, even down to the hub, which is kind of bizarre. I don't know if they copied it or if it was like a design they already had in another model. I'm not too sure. But the blades are very clean. They have some dust on them, but along the edges and on the trailing edge, but considering its age, this fan's almost 30 years old, it's really not that bad. I don't think it has seen a ton of use. The motor is clean as well, just a little bit of dust. Let's see if I can get a good view of the motor there. So all in all, pretty clean to start with. Yeah, there's some dust, but it's not too bad. So the reason why I said this fan is kind of cheap is because its molding is very interesting. So take a look at the side of the fan. So typically on most window fans, the two halves of the housings are two separate pieces of plastic moldings, right? They would take the rear housing, they would install the motor, the blades, the switch, and all of the wiring first. Then they would take the front housing, put it on top of it, and screw the two halves together. Now what Lakewood did with this fan, the T-99, is they went a completely different approach. They took both of the front and the rear housing, they molded it with a single mold, and they're joined by this band up here. So what they did was they basically installed all of the parts, and then they folded the two halves down along these two edges and screwed the halves together just at the bottom. There are some screws at the top for reinforcement, but it's a very different build design than most other window fans. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a design quite like this one before. And you can argue and say that's kind of a clever design. It saves money with manufacturing and all that. And while that's true, from a maintenance standpoint, this fan is pretty subpar, because the problem with plastic is that over time it can get brittle, and because these two edges are very thin, allowing them to fold, if that gets weak and you try to take the fan apart and you undo the folding, it's going to put a ton of stress along these two edges, which could just simply crack and break off. In that case, there's no real way to repair that because it's such a thin region of the plastic here. So I'm kind of concerned when I take apart the fan. I don't know if I'm going to maybe try to just keep the opening down here as small as possible and kind of stick my hand in there, wipe it clean, because I don't really think it'll be a good idea to just completely open it back up like a book again, because this part will likely split. In fact, there's actually a little crack back here near the on-off switch on the rear side where the plastic has just kind of deteriorated. So yeah, from a maintenance standpoint, this fan is definitely not well designed. I think it's kind of stupid that Lakewood went this route. Lakewood may have had really good box fans, but their desk fans and window fans were nowhere as good as their competitors. I think Lasco and some other manufacturers, they definitely nailed that department better than Lakewood did. Alright, so anyways, let's go ahead and give it a quick test. The bearings do sound like they need some oil, so I'm not going to run that for too long, but we'll start up on low speed. Hopefully it won't tip over. It's kind of on a very sketchy setup on this antique, or vintage, I guess you could say, banker's chair from the 1960s. So you can really hear that dry bearing. I think it's coming from the left fan. It's quiet speed on low, not moving a ton of air. But I guess this would be good for nighttime, just to draw some cool air from outside. It's got some vibration. It's hard to tell which fan it's coming from. Alright, we'll turn it up to high. I'll hold the fan just in case it tips over. It's not a very powerful fan, but I think it'd be alright in a window. To be honest, I'd rather have a box fan in the window than one of these. I'll let it coast down. Yeah, the bearings don't sound too happy. Yeah, it looks like the left fan does need a little bit more oil than the right fan. Alright, so before we go, let's take a look at the information on the bottom of the fan. It's just kind of molded into the plastic. It's a model T-99. It draws 1.6 amps, which I'm guessing is for both motors. So each of them would draw about 0.8. Lakewood Engineering and Manufacturing Company, Chicago, Illinois. It doesn't say where it was made, but I'm guessing at this point they were still making fans in the US. UL listed. Let's take a look at the motors. This fan uses Jackal motors, which I believe were also in the Cool Operator Juniors, the earlier ones. They seem like good motors. And I love how these motors are completely exposed and not even protected one bit from the rain. Because most newer window fans, maybe that's more of a modern thing, but they all tend to have a cover with angled vents to prevent rainwater from getting into them. But these, if you were to get water all over them, they'd be done. I was gonna say, is that rust on the stator? Maybe a little bit, but it doesn't look like these were really drenched at any point. There's the switch inside. That should be a tower switch. And another look at the very suspiciously Lasco-like blades. Interesting. And there's the crack that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, the plastic's a little brittle. Alright, well that's going to wrap up this video on the Lakewood T-99 twin window fan from the 90s. And we'll eventually get this thing cleaned up. I don't think it's really a high priority project, but it's a neat fan nonetheless, so it'll definitely be sticking around in my collection. I'm crossing my fingers that when I do take it apart that the two edges on the top are not gonna crack, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. So anyways, that's gonna be for this video, so thanks for watching guys, and as always I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.